Welcome to the Hollywood Hustle channel, presented by Molly and Lester.
Hello, I'm Molly.
And I'm Lester.
And we're extremely excited to be your hosts on Hollywood Hustle.
In this podcast, we'll be deep diving into Charles Lenihoff's journal, Hollywood Hustle. Following the collapse of the Screen Actor Guild Rule 16G, combined with the rise of Uber agencies, billions of hedge fund dollars flowed into Uber's coffers. This shifted Uber agencies from being service-based businesses to asset-based businesses. Uber's ownership of programming, and potentially even broadcast networks, became valuable assets. All the intricate Hollywood accounting that comes with this would ultimately benefit Uber agencies for years to come. Lenihoff's federal antitrust case against UTA and ICM uncovered the Uber agency cartel's illegal price-fixing scheme. This discovery was later used by the WGA in their lawsuit to dismantle the agency's ability to package deals.
Okay, so, ready to go behind the scenes in Hollywood?
Always.
Today, we're diving deep into the world of television packaging.
Ooh, juicy.
It is. We're going to unpack how a few big-time talent agencies, the ones they call the Uber agencies, how they end up with so much control over what shows get made, you know?
Yeah.
You've given us some really interesting documents to dig into.
Lots to unpack.
I'm curious to see what we uncover.
What's really fascinating here is that it wasn't some big hostile takeover. It was this gradual thing, starting back in the mid-90s.
Okay.
With agencies like William Morris, CAA, and ICM.
Right, the big players.
The big five of the talent world, right?
Yeah.
These agencies, they were the power brokers, the ones with all the A-listers, the actors, the directors. Everybody wanted a piece of them.
They were the gatekeepers, basically, of Hollywood, right?
Exactly.
So how did these agencies go from just representing talent to practically calling all the shots?
Right.
Our sources point to this whole thing called packaging. Can you break that down for us?
Okay, so imagine, right? You're a network and you're looking for that next big hit show.
Yeah.
Packaging is like, boom, here's a done deal. They bundle everything up, the show's creator, the stars, sometimes even the production company itself, and present it to the network as a neatly wrapped package. Here you go.
So it's like efficiency for the network.
Efficiency for sure.
Yeah.
But that's not the whole story.
Okay.
The real power of packaging. It's all about the leverage, the money.
Fees.
Oh, yes, the fees. We're talking big percentages that the agency takes from a show's profits. Initially, it was this 5-5-10 model, 5% of the net profits, 5% of production costs, and then a big old 10% of the network's gross.
Wow, those are some hefty percentages. Those agencies were raking it in.
Oh, you know it. But here's the thing. It gets even more interesting.
Okay.
Remember Sam Haskell? He was a big deal over at William Morris.
Yeah.
Well, according to our sources, Haskell and some other agency heads, they had this habit of, shall we say, coordinating their packaging fees.
Coordinating? You mean hey, let's all agree to charge the same ridiculously high amount.
Bingo. This wasn't some coincidence. They knew they had the studios over a barrel because, let's face it, they had the biggest names in Hollywood. And here's the kicker. They eventually shifted from that 5-5-10 model to a 3-3-10 model.
So they lowered some of their cuts?
Right. Sounds good on paper, right? But what it did was give them a way bigger piece of the pie in the long run.
So they took a smaller cut of a much larger pie, which means more money for them down the line.
Exactly. It wasn't just about representing talent anymore. It was about building empires.
Wow.
And this whole coordinating fees thing, that was just the beginning.
Oh, no.
To really solidify their control, the Uber agencies started co-packaging.
Co-packaging? Is that like a joint venture between agencies? I thought they were supposed to be competing with each other.
You'd think so, right?
Yeah.
But they realized that, hey, if they teamed up, they could completely shut out the smaller agencies, control access to all the best projects.
So much for a free market.
The smaller agencies simply couldn't compete. It was brilliant, ruthless, and totally cemented the Uber agency's grip on Hollywood. It's just amazing how quickly they went from cooperating to basically operating like a cartel.
Well, you know what they say? Absolute power
corrupts absolutely. And this, my friend, is just the tip of the iceberg.
So these Uber agencies have got this packaging thing down, but it sounds like there was a little hiccup in their plan, right?
Ah, you're talking about the Screen Actors Guild.
Right, SAG. They had this rule, right, that seemed to throw a wrench in the Uber agency's whole operation.
Yeah, for decades, the SAG agreement, specifically Rule 16G, it basically prevented agencies from getting directly involved in the financial side of things.
It makes sense, right? You want someone looking out for the actors, not just trying to, squeeze profits from both ends.
Exactly. But the Uber agencies, they saw an opportunity to make even more money, right? By directly investing in the shows they were packaging.
Of course, they want to be more than just the middleman.
Always. But Rule 16G was in their way.
So what'd they do?
They got strategic.
Duh.
In 1999, the Association of Talent Agents, the ATA, they formed this strategic planning committee.
Okay, so like a super group of Hollywood agents.
The best of the best. And their mission, to take down Rule 16G.
Wow. And it worked?
It did. By 2002, they had successfully, I guess you could say, imploded the SAG agreement.
Wow. So just like that, the floodgates were open.
Pretty much. With Rule 16G out of the picture, agencies could now invest in and profit from the shows they were packaging, just like studios.
Hold on. So the people who are supposed to be looking out for their clients' best interests could now also be profiting off of them on the back end. Isn't that a conflict of interest?
It's a huge one.
Yeah.
And it raises some serious questions about whether actors were really getting the best possible deals.
It's a good thing we have these documents to shed some light on these practices. But before we get into that, what happened after the SAG rule change? Didn't you say something about hedge funds getting involved?
Oh, yeah. Remember all that money we were talking about the agencies were making? Well, with Rule 16G gone, it was like a free-for-all. Billions, and I mean billions of dollars from hedge funds came pouring into the Uber agencies.
Billions? Why were hedge funds so eager to get into Hollywood?
They saw dollar signs, my friend. With agencies essentially acting as mini studios, hedge funds could invest in a whole portfolio of shows, increasing their chances of hitting it big.
Wow, so these agencies went from powerful middlemen to major Hollywood players, overnight.
It was a complete transformation of the power structure in Hollywood. And to really understand the implications of this, we need to look at a specific example from our sources, the show Cold Case.
Okay, let's break down Cold Case. What makes this show such a good example?
Cold Case gives us a really clear look at the financial realities of packaging after that rule change. We have documents that show exactly how much the show's creator, Meredith Steam, made compared to the agency's cut. And, well, the difference is pretty shocking.
Okay, you've got my attention. Lay it on me.
Over its run, Cold Case, big success, right? Meredith Steam, the brains behind it all, earned $7.7 million.
$7.7 million. That's a pretty good chunk of change for, 7 years of work?
Right. But get this. CAA, the agency that packaged Cold Case, they made $11.55 million. Just in packaging fees alone.
Wait, hold on. The agency made millions more than the person who actually created the show just from packaging fees. What about their back-end profits?
Exactly. And you can bet those back-end profits were substantial. This one example, it just goes to show you how much money was flowing to the agencies under this new system.
This is really making me rethink how Hollywood operates. But what about all the other people involved in making these shows? The writers, for example. Did this packaging system impact them as well? So we see how lucrative this whole packaging system was for the agencies.
Yeah.
But what about the writers? The ones actually, writing the episodes, creating the dialogue.
Right.
How'd this system impact them?
Well, it all comes down to leverage, right?
Yeah.
The Uber agencies, they've got access to the big names, the big projects.
Right.
So they hold all the cards when it comes to negotiating.
And I'm guessing that doesn't always work out in the writer's favor.
You got it. Our sources definitely suggest that the writers often felt the squeeze, The agencies, they were laser focused on their own profits.
Right.
So they weren't always incentivized to, fight as hard for the writers.
So the people actually crafting the stories, shaping the shows we love,
Right.
They're the ones getting the short end of the stick.
It happened a lot, yeah. Kind of ironic, isn't it? A system that's supposed to be all about representing talent
Right.
ends up creating this dynamic where some talent feel like their own representatives aren't really looking out for them.
And this all came to a head, right? The Writers Guild, they took a stand against the system.
They did. By the late 2000s, the WGA had had enough.
Yeah.
They decided to sue the Uber agencies over this whole packaging system.
What were their main arguments?
Well, they argued that agencies, they were operating with this blatant conflict of interest, putting their own financial gain ahead of their clients' best interest.
Right.
They also argued that packaging was driving down writers' earnings, limiting their creative control.
Sounds like a real David and Goliath battle.
It was.
So what happened? Was the WGA able to take down the Uber agency's packaging empire?
It's a bit more complicated than that.
Okay.
The legal battles went on for a while.
Right.
And while the WGA did achieve some victories, forcing agencies to be more transparent, restructure some deals,
Okay.
it wasn't a complete overhaul.
So even today, the Uber agencies, they still hold a lot of power in Hollywood.
Oh, they're still major players, for sure.
Right.
But the WGA's fight, it's shown a light on these issues, got people talking about fairness and transparency in the industry.
That's so important.
It is.
This whole deep dive has been eye-opening. We've gone from the early days of packaging to this consolidation of power, the conflicts, the fight for a fairer system.
Yeah.
It really highlights how, in Hollywood, the business side of things can be just as dramatic as the stories they put on screen.
Absolutely. Every show we watch, there's this whole world behind it, power dynamics, money, creative voices, all trying to be heard.
It really makes you think.
It does.
And it leaves us with a lot to think about too, right?
Yeah.
Did this system influence the kinds of stories Hollywood tells? Did it stifle creativity? Did it prioritize profits over, making good art? These are important questions.
They are. And it underscores the need for, scrutiny, for more transparency.
Right.
It's an ongoing conversation.
Yeah.
If we want a more equitable and creatively vibrant entertainment industry.
Absolutely. Well said. This deep dive has been a wild ride.
Yeah.
Clearly, there's still a lot more to uncover.
Oh, yeah.
So to our listener out there, keep asking those tough questions.
Keep digging.
Keep exploring. Keep digging deeper into the stories behind the stories.
Who knows what you'll find?
That wraps up this episode. Please check out the author's website at lenhoff.com to access all the research, exhibits, court filings, transcripts, and more. I'm Molly.
And I'm Lester. And we'll see you very soon on the next episode of Hollywood Hustle.